Hey everybody, it's Mark
and Carl
again, and we're going to show you, or Carl's going to show you a little today about how to prepare clay. But first of all, what clay is a little bit, and then how to prepare it before you make something with clay. Go, Carl.
Okay, all right, so what is clay? So, Mark, is clay mud?
No.
Is it sand?
No, although there can be some sand in it.
Is it, let's get Mark over here for a sec. Let's talk about this first. What are the properties, what is one of the properties that clay has that most other mud and sandy kind of things don't have, Mark?
Well, I'm thinking about it and I'm having this thought, and all of a sudden it sticks and retains its shape. It's called plasticity.
All right, so clay is plastic, and so the reason clay is plastic is because of the shape of the particle, right? So what happens if you take two pieces of glass and put a drop of water in between them and you stick those two pieces of glass together? Like, what happens? Mark, what happens?
It would squish out.
The water would squish out, but what happens to the glass?
Oh, it sticks to it.
It's stuck. You can't move it, but you can slide it, you know, one over the other. So clay has these little tiny platelets, and they can slide, when they get wet, they can slide over each other. And then when that moisture goes away, they're stuck. They dry, and they're stuck, right? And clay is made up of, what kind of a rock is clay made up from?
It's a feldspar. It's a
decomposed. So what did we hike on all last weekend?
Granite.
Granite. Decomposed granite. So you take Yosemite, 3,000-foot high Yosemite, and give it a couple million years to disintegrate and turn into gravel, and then get washed down the river, and then get deposited as a fine silt, and then that's clay, this plastic stuff, right? And then we heat it up, and it fires back into almost like a stone, right? That's why we call it stoneware or anything like that. Okay, so how to, Mark, I need a wire, quick. How to prepare your clay. Okay, so you can cut off a little chunk of your clay, and maybe you don't need that much to start. You can do like half that. It'd be like softball size, right? And then wedging your clay. So your clay came from a little clay manufacturer in Richmond, California, and he may have made this clay a couple months ago. So although it's workable and plastic, it might not be totally homogeneous. So some of the clay on the inside might be softer than the clay on the outside, and that makes it a little harder to work with. So you're gonna wanna wedge your clay. And you guys are gonna be working on a board or a cutting board or something like that at home. So I'll do the same thing here. To wedge your clay, it's not like kneading. When you knead bread, you kind of stretch bread out and you incorporate air into it. But when you wedge clay, you wanna keep it tight and you wanna force out any air bubbles that are in there. So I'm gonna start with the heels of my hands, like this, okay? And I'm gonna push right on the top of the piece of clay, and I'm gonna push forward just a little bit, okay? And I kind of squish that clay down. And then I'm gonna back up and roll the clay back. Push and roll. Push and roll, right? And so you see that my clay is starting to get this kind of shape here, like that. Right? Here's what I don't want to do. I don't want to push really flat and then fold it back over, right? Because if I do that, I'm going to trap a bunch of air inside of there. Does that make sense? Okay, so push and roll back, push and roll back. Sometimes we call this the, what do we call it? The bulldog. See, get the bulldog there? Everybody likes the bulldog. Okay, wedge up. Kind of roll it out, and then you can, depending on what you're making, you can make it into a ball, or you can make it into a slab from there, okay? All right, cut.